Objective 3, demonstrate knowledge of principles and evidence-based instructional practices for developing word analysis skills and strategies, including syllabication, structural or morphemic analysis, and orthographic skills. In Objective 3, we're going to start to move past the simple letter sound correspondences that we were being asked about in the Objective 2 questions in regards to phonics. We're still going to be talking about phonics, which is, of course, the instruction of the alphabetic principle. But now we're going to be doing more complicated levels of phonics that get into just beyond the simple correspondences. And we're going to bring in some meaning when we talk about morphemic analysis. And orthographic skills just means that there are writing questions that are fair game at Objective 3 as well. So let's get into it. First, we have to talk about a syllable. A syllable is a unit of speech that has one vowel sound or one sounded vowel, right? Because you can have multiple vowels, but if there's a silent E, you'd still count it as a single syllable. So it has to have one vowel making a sound. A syllable is a word or part of a word with one talking vowel is something we would teach kids. Now, it becomes very important when we're talking about syllables to understand, I hinted about this in Objective 2, that the vowel is everything here. The vowel is the thing in a syllable that when students come across it, we don't, I mean, at the very least, there are two options for every vowel that we see, right? We have a long sound and a short sound for every vowel. And then if there are vowel teams, then we have even more options than that because there, as we went over last time, there are vowel teams that make sounds that aren't available in either the long or short vowel sounds. So there's a lot there. So we have to do all of this syllable work to answer the question, what is the vowel sound? Okay, so how do you figure out what a syllable is when you're working with students? That's called, how to split up the syllables is called syllabication. So anytime you say a word that has multiple syllables, what you'll notice is that your mouth is going to have to open to make a vowel sound. So we teach often, we teach what's called chin tapping, where we have students put their hand under their chin, and you'll notice that as you say every syllable, your chin has to move to open your mouth to make the vowel sound. So students can, who are having struggling with having awareness at the syllable level, that phonological awareness at the syllable level, will touch their chin, and when they speak the words, they can count how many times their chin moves down. So that's what a syllable is. We can categorize syllable types to help us answer the question, what sound does the vowel make in this word? The first and by far most common syllable type are what's called closed syllables, and that's when we have a vowel sound closed in by at least one consonant or multiple consonants. In that case, in closed syllables, you can tell it's closed because the vowel is going to make its short sound. So in the word n, ah, t, we have the letter O closed in by the letter T. So we know that the O is going to make its ah sound in this word. And because this is a regular word, it's a closed syllable, it says ah. Open syllables are when the vowel is left open, there's nothing closing it in, and when we have open syllables, the vowel is going to make its long sound, such as no. Nothing is stopping that O and closing it in, so it makes its long sound. The third syllable type are called silent E, sometimes referred to as magic E. This is when a vowel, there's a vowel sound followed by a consonant followed by a silent E, and the silent E is going to make or signify really that the vowel is going to make its long sound, such as note. So if you want a vowel followed by a consonant, but you want the vowel making its long sound, then In English, we put a silent E after it to denote that the vowel makes its long sound. So here we go. Not, closed, ah, open, o, note, o. So those syllable types, the reason we can categorize them is to tell us what sound does o make. Vowel teams are when we have two vowels that make a sound together. This is commonly called vowel teams, and MTEL will call them vowel teams. But different language description programs will call these different things. You should just know that there's a little bit of variability in this, but what it comes down to is these are all, like I said in the last video, vowel digraphs where we have vowels coming together to make one single sound. So in this syllable word example right here, we have AI says A, and that is a vowel team. And we know we have other kinds of vowel teams that make unique sounds like OI, oi, OY, oi, etc. OW, ow. Those are going to be all vowel team syllables, and we have to memorize, if we're teaching this explicitly, the different vowel, what are the different vowel team combinations that we can get, and what are their available sounds. Vowel teams can be, some vowel teams can be consistent, other vowel teams can be very inconsistent, such as EA. The next syllable type is R controlled. These are what we were talking about last time in R controlled sounds. R controlled syllable types are just a syllable that contains an R controlled sound. So just to repeat myself from before, these are IR, OR, AR, ER, UR. Most of them say but you can also get an or an hour. Yeah. Those are going to be all the sounds available. But basically, if you see a syllable that has an R controlled sound in it, you can call that an R controlled syllable, and we get that R causing the distortion of the vowel sound that changes its sound slightly. These are common enough that they get their own syllable type. So we call these R controlled. And the last, similar to R controlled, are the consonant LE, sometimes called LE controlled. This is when you have a syllable type with a LE at the end of the word. Again, this is going to be telling us what the vowel sounds in this word. In this case, this example, we have table, where the consonant LE syllable type is forcing the A to make its long name. But any syllable type with an LE, regardless of what's happening to the vowel, is going to be a consonant LE syllable type. So this six I showed you is taught in order of frequency in English language, as well as order and therefore really the order that we teach them in systematic phonics programs. So, and that's also in terms of the test going to be what we consider easier versus harder. So the test, the MTEL will ask you, force you to make comparisons and about what word would be easier or harder for a student. And so you should, broadly know that closed is going to be easier than open versus it's going to be easier than silent E, and so on and so forth. Here is a sequence that a phonics program might go through, and you can use this graphic here as sort of a cheat to help you memorize, because there are going to be multiple questions on this, memorize the order in which these sounds and syllable types get taught. So the first sounds that we're going to be teaching are single consonants, b, d, etc. Then we'll do short vowel sounds. Then we'll do those consonant digraphs that we talked about. Now we're going to put those together in words and come up with a CVC. This is a closed syllable type. CVC is another way to say closed syllable. You should see that CVC will come up on the test, so you should know that that's interchangeable with closed syllable. So we put single consonant, short vowels, consonant digraphs together, and we can make a whole ton of words. A huge amount of words in English language can be created by just the combinations of those things, which become our single syllable words, single syllable, closed syllable words. All right. Then we open up long vowel sounds to the students. And when A says A, E says E, we get all the vowels saying their name, which allows us to teach two more syllable types. Once we've taught that vowels can say their name and make their long sound, that opens us up to CVCE words or magic E words, where the vowel says its name. And then down here, CV words, which is another way to say open syllables. Right, consonant, vowel, consonant, closed in, CVCE, silent E, CV, open syllables. So now that we've taught long vowel sounds, we add in these and these kinds of syllables. Then we do those R controlleds after that. Then we have silent consonants. We have all sorts of crazy things we can do with silent consonants. H's get silent, G's get silent, all that stuff. Vowel teams and diphthongs now will come in and we'll teach all the options we have in vowel teams and diphthongs. There are many, and students find them confusing. Then we'll add in sort of like the last couple things we haven't talked about, the consonant trigraphs, which is the TCH, and other things that we haven't taught yet, like IGH says I, or EIGH, like in the word eight says I. We're going to catch all of those things, and then of course end with rule exceptions, which are all of the words that break the rules. Um, we don't necessarily teach those all at the end because there's going to be a lot of rule breaking words when we talk about irregular words in a second that are also high frequency words that we're going to be teaching, throughout this time, even right as early as the beginning and the introduction of CVC words, we'll be teaching them. Um, Basically the last thing we're leaving here is everything that's not a high frequency word that is irregular. So, yeah, catch all. All right, let's talk about those irregular words. Like I said, there are words, English is not a strict one-to-one phonological um, language because English borrows from many, many languages, which makes for some um, richness, but also makes for some difficulty in reading. So we have lots of words that it's not as many as people think. People always overestimate the amount of irregularity in English because it sticks out. Um, but it's certainly there, and we do have to teach it. As you can see, this list of 5 irregular words we teach students. These are certainly the, would, and have are what we consider high frequency words. Friend for younger students is also probably considered a high frequency word, and then beautiful would certainly be high frequency by the time you get to, I don't know, second or third grade or something. Um, these are all irregular words because they don't follow, right? Friend is a word in which EI says eh. That's strange. Uh, the is a word where E says the, right? Would is a word where we don't pronounce the L. That's that silent consonant we were talking about. And OU says right? Same thing with have. Have is an irregular word because what does this look like to a student if they haven't memorized have? Oh, this looks like a silent E word. So that silent E means A says its name, and that should say have. Nope, this is just have. So we do have to teach um, some irregularities in words. And unfortunately, there's no magic trick to this other than you should go in the order of the frequency of appearance to allow students to access the most amount of text. Because, and we'll keep circling back to this, we're always going to stay laser focused on the point of doing all this is so that students can comprehend text. So why do we have to teach irregular words? Because we want the students to comprehend and spend as much time in the text as possible, not memorizing words on flashcards. That's not the point. It's not filling out some inventory for a report card. That's not the point either. The point of memorizing irregular words is that students can spend time in the text. Uh, an unfortunate thing about the programs that you'll see is that people will use words to describe irregular words uh, inconsistently across programs. Most programs are probably internally consistent. But it can be really hard if your school is changing curriculums every couple years, or for instance, I just my I have a first grader, and she's coming home with stuff, and she's coming home with UFI materials from her teacher, and they're doing heart sounds, and she's also coming home with foundations materials, and they're doing trick words, and then she's also coming home with Wit and Wisdom, and they're doing high frequency and irregular, and she's coming home with a Dolch list, and it's a lot. It's a lot of things to and categories of words to memorize if you're using multiple programs. It can be so. I've tried to come up with this overlapping Venn diagram here to help people understand the difference between what we actually mean, right? So when the research is using these words, what do we mean, and how do we stay consistent? Let's start with high frequency words. This one is a common one. High frequency words are words that occur frequently in text. So when we describe a word and categorize it as high frequency, that's in reference to the text, the words that appear most common. Now, what you should understand is that this is can be a thing that's going to change over time, right? So certain words are going to be high frequency words in the kinds of texts that students are accessing in kindergarten, such as the word play, that are going to become less and less common as the students get older, in which case other words are going to become more common. So like I said in the previous slide, beautiful is a word that you're probably not going to be probably not going to be a high frequency word for a kindergartner, but certainly we would consider that high frequency by the time the student is in upper elementary school and middle school. That is a frequently occurring word in text, and we would expect students to know it despite um, its irregularity, right? It's because it's just frequently appearing. All right. Irregular words, and we can see that there's going to be overlap here because these aren't strict categories. Some of these will be in both. So a word like beautiful is going to be a high frequency word and also an irregular word. An irregular word is in reference to the rules that we've taught. So, you know, this is definitely going to be depending on, how far the student is in looking in learning rules and what are the rules that you're teaching them. So words can be irregular at some point and then not be and become regular once you've taught them the rules. So these are words that don't follow the spelling patterns that we're teaching. They aren't necessarily difficult, um, but it's just that you're not going to use a rule to sound them out. So let's go back to that sequence, right? So if I have a first grade or kindergarten student, right, and I haven't taught them R controlled yet, the R controlled sound, and therefore I haven't taught them the R controlled syllable type, um, that's going to be an irregular word until I teach it to them. And once I teach the R controlled sound, that's going to become a regular word for them because they have the rule, right? So IR is irregular until we've taught them the rule, and then it becomes regular. So things can move in and out of this as well. We have words that are high frequency and irregular, and then we have words that are just irregular um, and can't be applied. Lastly, and in some ways most importantly, are sight words, and this is the one that gets most commonly misused. Sight words are in reference to the student. What words does the student know by sight? Okay, what can they read without slowing down? Which means that every word can become a sight word for that student. Sight, you can't make a list of sight words. There is no class-based or group-based sight word list because sight words are just the words that a student can read without slowing down. They can read without accessing their phonological processor. And we usually say, in testing, we'll give kids, we'll be generous and say 2 seconds, but really it should be like less than a second. So if you can come across a word and read it in less than a second, that's probably a word that is a sight word for you. The goal of every word is to become a sight word, right? There are many irregular and high frequency words, but all of the words on this page are sight words for me because I'm a fluent reader, and I bet all of these words are sight words for you too because you are also a fluent reader. Some of these new vocabulary words I haven't taught you, like phonological, that might not be a sight word for you yet. You might, when you're reading that, have to slow down and access your phonological processor and sound it out in your head. And that just means that's fine. You can read it. That's just not a sight word for you yet, but it will be soon. You're going to see it enough studying for foundations of reading, where I bet at the beginning of this, phonological wasn't a sight word for you. And by the end, it will be, in which case you've added it to your sight word vocabulary. So we can see that sight words are a student-based thing. All right, let's go back to talking about syllables again. So the test it's going to ask you rules of syllabication, and this is definitely another you know, um, not a strict thing. Programs will have different rules based on syllabication, but I'm going to give you the common ones that I have seen that you will need to answer questions in the MTEL when they ask you to syllabicate words. The first is the double consonant rule. So when two or more consonants stand between two vowels, you divide the consonants, right? So if you have let's just say a word that has E-L-L-A. Okay, that's just a spelling pattern within the word. Excel, no, that's not going to work. Just E-L-L-A. We want to split at the L. Okay, we want to give the L, one L to the E and the other L to the A. So when you have double consonants and there's a vowel on each side, you're going to split the consonant right there. And I'll show you examples in questions in a second if that sounds confusing. Other times, you have to have what's called the flex rules, and where you have a vowel followed by a consonant and vowel, or a vowel consonant followed by a vowel. So the question is, where do you give the consonant? When you have a single consonant between two vowel sounds, what do you give it to? Okay. So when a single consonant is surrounded by two vowels, divide before the consonant, making the first vowel in this syllable long. So in a word, for instance, like open, right? O-P-E-N, open, we have a P stuck between the O and the E. Well, where do we give the P to in the syllable? Do we say ope, N? That doesn't make sense because O is saying its long name. The P is going to go with the E because E is saying a short name. That becomes a closed syllable. O becomes by itself and it's a long syllable. If this, we call it a flex rule because if this doesn't sound right to your ears, you have to access your language comprehension skills. And then sometimes the consonant does go with the first syllable. Most of the time, it goes with the second syllable, like here, B/CV. You're giving the consonant to the second syllable, but sometimes it doesn't. All right, jumping to an entirely different topic now. This objective covers a lot of different things. Morphemes. This is another vocabulary word that we need to add if this is a new one for you. If a phoneme is the smallest unit of sound, and a grapheme is the smallest unit of written language associated with the sound, a morpheme is the smallest unit of meaning. Okay. When we put words, letters together, they create meaning. Many times we're going to have what are called base words, which are just free morphemes. So here we have categories of morphemes. These will come up, the language of free versus bound morpheme will come up in the MTEL. So you should have an idea of this, but it's actually very simple. So free morphemes are going to be basically your base words, okay? These are all of the things that communicate meaning. So jump is a free morpheme. Jump is the smallest unit that represents the idea of jump up and down, right? Same thing with sky, same thing with heel. These are all single syllable base words. We can also have free morphemes that are compound words. So we have a, a word like daylight. Now, daylight is a compound word of day and light, but it communicates a single piece of meaning, right? Daylight is a single thing. So it communicates a single part of meaning. And then we have these other words that we kind of don't know what to do with. We call them function words, that won't come up in the test. But what you need to know is free morphemes versus these things, bound morphemes. Bound morphemes are syllables that communicate meaning, but they cannot stand on their own. So these are words like morphemes like which is a group of morphemes called prefixes. These are the morphemes that we can stick uh, on the front of a base word to alter the meaning of that base word. And meaning before, does communicate some meaning, but does not stand on its own, as with un, miss, etc. Those are prefixes. They do contain meaning. They will alter the meaning of the base word. They go at the beginning. We call them prefixes. Same thing. The opposite of that is suffixes. These are words that will change, morphemes will change the meaning of a base word, but they cannot stand on their own. So in the word inflectional, right, we have shun and all are two suffixes um, that change the base inflect, right? And then we have roots, which are they're roots because they can't stand on their own, but they always get attached with a prefix or suffix, and they do have some meaning. So in the word, let's say struct, struct is not a word, but many words use the root struct in combination with construct, destruct, restruct, etc. Um, so those are morphemes, the smallest unit of meaning. We have free morphemes, which can stand on their own, and we have bound morphemes, which need to be attached to other morphemes. They do not stand on their own. So you'll see questions on the test asking you, usually it's not going to be like definitionally what is a bound morpheme, but they'll reference, I'm teaching bound morpheme, the bound morpheme pre. It'll say something like that. And you should just not, I just want you to know what it is so you don't get confused by that categorization. All right, this is what is called a word matrix from structural word analysis. So we can take this and practice making, combining morphemes with base. So remember, these are all of your um, prefixes here. Some of these are not prefixes, like over, in, under, up, breath. So these are your prefixes up here, which are bound, and these are non or free morphemes that can stand on their own, but we can combine with take to make a new word. So in, over, under. Same thing over here. We have suffixes that will change the meaning of the root here, take. Um, and then we can add, of course, other free morphemes away and over to combined. So we can have students take a look at this word matrix and make combinations. So we can make a two morpheme word like intake, make a three morpheme word, uh, mistakes, three morpheme, and then we can make a four morpheme word like, oh boy, unmistakably would be like a four morpheme word. Wow. So we can do that with the with the word matrices. So we can do this morpheme practice and teach students about how this morpheme changes the meaning of this when it becomes a word. Okay. So we're doing a lot of meaning now, and we're getting into the actual comprehending of the word by teaching morphemes. So this is not no longer, we're not, when we're talking about morphemes, we're moving out of phonics land because phonics is teaching associations between sounds and their letters and combinations thereof. So all the syllable types, that's all phonics. That's still part of most kinds of phonics. And all of that teaching of sounds, that's all phonics as well. Morphemes is something uh, that's not outside of phonics because it's talking about meaning. Phonics is really all about word recognition decoding. Morphemes is where we start to get into the meaning side of that equation. Remember that top part of the rope. So phonics is in that blue part of the rope. This is up in that red part of the rope that I showed you before. All right, let's do some questions. Go ahead. We'll do some knowledge checks. So again, I want you to try to read these questions yourself to simulate the experience of taking the test. So pause here and we'll come back with the answer. The correct answer is B, providing practice with phoneme-grapheme mapping and various reading and spelling activities that focus on words containing the new orthographic pattern. Okay. Um, This is wonderful. I love this question so much because this question, if you can get this question, it does a lot of heavy lifting for other questions on the test. The reality is B is the only evidence-based practice. So as soon as you see, according to evidence-based practices, what should we do? You read all these. You don't really have to quite understand be 100% sure about that as the thing that, providing this practice is the actual thing that you would want to do. You can be a little bit unsure, but what I want you to be really sure about is that the rest of these are non-evidence based. So I'm going to give you some key words to look out for. One of the things we want to see and the MTEL is focusing on is the use of explicit instruction. You're going to see that all over this place. Explicit, explicit, explicit. The opposite of explicit is implicit. Talking about morphemes again, kind of. The opposite of explicit is implicit. So if you see a question where the answer suggests that you should do something implicitly with a student, that is a very, very, very good chance that the question that answer is not going to be correct. The test is not going to ask you to implicitly do anything. It's going to be very explicit. It's explicit focused. You want to see the word explicit when it's something you want to affirm that you're doing. Um, C, all you have to see here is three queuing systems, right? So three queuing systems is another word for guessing. And so we don't want students to be guessing on any of these words. We don't want them to be looking at pictures and trying to figure out. We always want students to be focused on the word, focused on the code. What's the code? Sound it out, because sounding it out and decoding is the only way to build that fluency. So anytime you see three queuing, that's going to be a wrong answer because that's just guessing. Lastly, D is tactile kinesthetic, right? Tactile kinesthetic approach is a reference to something called learning styles. And learning styles are a debunked, education theory. They don't hold up. And this test is the MTEL is trying to, catch anybody in that. But you should know that anytime you see, tactile kinesthetic, auditory, the other ones that I've kind of forgot because I haven't looked at the learning style stuff in a long time. But anytime you see this, you should know that, oh, that's referencing learning styles. Learning styles is um, debunked educational stuff. And so that cannot possibly be the answer. So be on the lookout for these things. Implicitly, three queuing, tactile kinesthetic. Those are all going to be wrong answers for sure. All right, try this one. Pause here. The correct answer is D, reveal, combine, explain. In this question, what we want to do is design the next activity that this student should be working on. So if we see what they can read in single syllable, what they can read in single syllable are closed, open, silent E, and vowel team syllables that make a long vowel sound. That's very important. So we're going to take what are the words that they can say in single syllables, and we're going to take them, move them forward, design the next activity, be like, okay, what can you do? And we'll design an activity with multisyllabic words uh, that contain syllables that we know you can read. I know you can read closed, open, silent, and vowel teams with long vowels. Therefore, I'm going to try to push you forward by having you read multisyllable. Now, we already know that the student in the second bullet point can read closed and open syllable, multisyllable words, so we don't need to worry about those anymore. The test doesn't, these answers here don't try to trick you with any of that. So we don't need to actually worry about this bullet point at all. So the question is, which of these lists of words, this is recognizing syllable types, right? Which of these words contain silent E syllables and vowel team syllables that make a long vowel sound? Okay, so A is wrong because we have EA says what? In treadmill. Same thing in healthy. EA says and same thing in pleasant. EA says eh. That's a short vowel sound. The student doesn't read those in single syllable words, so it wouldn't give them in multisyllable. OW says ow. That's that vowel diphthong that we haven't done yet, right? Ow is not a long vowel sound. Ow and oi, those are the vowel diphthongs. Those are not long vowel sounds. We haven't taught those students yet. So we're not going to do that. And then these are obviously the consonant LEs that we haven't taught the student yet. So the only option is these. So we have open syllable, vowel team. EA says E in reveal. So that's good. Silent E, closed, combine, that's good. Closed, and then vowel team with AI says A and explain long vowel sound. Perfect. We can do those vowel teams, no problem. All right. Pause here. The correct answer is C. So this question is going to have you do two things. First, you have to figure out how to syllabicate the word accumulate. So you have to syllabicate accumulate. And once we've syllabicated accumulate, you have to identify each syllable type. So let's do it. Here we have that syllabication rule where we have two consonants in between two vowels. And when I say we have two consonants, a double consonant in between two vowels, you're going to split them. So we're going to give even though this isn't quite naturally how you say it, just trust me, we're going to give this C to this syllable. So we have the first syllable, ac. How do I know it's ac? Because A says it's short sound and accumulate. So we say ac. And then we have here a consonant between two vowels. And I say most of the time we give the consonant to the second vowel, and that's going to be true in this case too. So now we have CU says Q. How did I know I was right? Because that U is making its long sound, oo, or U in this word. It's kind of strange. Um, AQ, and then we have same thing, two vowels. Where does the consonant go? The consonant's going to go with the second vowel, mu, mu, open syllable, and then late, fourth syllable. And this is a silent E syllable. So we have open, closed, open, open, silent E. So what of these answers? Of course, it's C. Cum, ac, q, mu, late. Last question with this one. Let's get one in on morphemes. Go ahead and pause here. The correct answer is D. Remember that word matrix that I showed you? Only one of these can fit inside that word matrix, right? So pre-test, retest, tested, and testing all contain the free morpheme test. That stands on its own as its own word, so it's a free morpheme. And then we can add prefixes and suffixes to test, such as pre, re, ed, and ing, right? We can make a word matrix out of tests, and we can add all the suffixes and have lots of fun doing that. So this is going to be really effective to teaching structural and morphemic analysis. You can see how the test is not quite committing, and they have to use a slash there because some people call this structural analysis, other people call it morphemic analysis. For us, they're just always going to put the slash in, so that's what you need to know. A would be great if we're trying to teach all the ways to make a long A sound. There's all vowel teams and unusual ways to make a long A sound. B would be great if we just are teaching AI says A, just that vowel team. We're going to use all those words to teach just that vowel team. And C was great if we're teaching tenses, which does actually get into meaning land, and is not like these are all phonics lists to teach phonics concepts, A and B. C is more phemic, but it's not structural analysis as we consider. This is just teaching students tenses. And yes, the tenses do change, but see the thing about these ones is that the tense changes like alters the actual um, morpheme, the orthography of the morpheme. So this would be not great for teaching it because this would be too irregular. We would want to do something like this where the morpheme just stays just as is. Um, the free morpheme in here just stays as, and we're just like attaching things in the front, in the back. All right, that is it for this objective. I'll see you in the next video.